Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook. Mike McCarthy is a producer behind the boards, and it's playoff time in the FCS, so we have a lot to talk about and cover in this episode. Here's a look at what we have on tap for this episode. We'll break down the outstanding and much anticipated Bayou Classic matchup between Grambling State and Southern that'll take place this weekend in New Orleans. We'll also break down every game on the playoff schedule this week. And as always, it's never too early to take a look at 2018 and some of the sleeper teams you want to keep an eye on. But first, let's get things kicked off as we get into some of the top storylines heading into this week of the FCS as we go into our 4-minute offense. There was some instant moving and shaking on the coaching front in the FCS. It's not that uncommon to see coaching changes happen the day after the season ends, but this year it just feels like it was more names than usual. Here's a look at some of the coaching changes so far in the FCS. As you can see, there was a lot of moving and shaking in the SWAC and MEAC as 3 coaches apiece are looking for new jobs. In the Southland, Jay Thomas was relieved of his duties, but the Demons have already hired Brad Laird for their head coaching job, and he's looking to hit the ground running. Also, we've reached a part of the season where the All-Star Game invites start to come out, and we've seen some names announced for the Senior Bowl. South Dakota State's Dallas Goddard, Brandon Parker of North Carolina A&T, Saron Neal of Jacksonville State, Darius Leonard of South Carolina State, Murray State's DeMontre Wade, and Danny Johnson of Southern, along with Tamon Paris of Stony Brook, have announced their acceptance to the annual All-Star Game in Mobile, Alabama. Sam Houston State's Jeremiah Briscoe and South Dakota State's Jake Winicky have confirmed Shrine Game invites as well, and as more names become available, we'll keep you posted. Only one team stands atop the Ivy League this year, and it's the Yale Bulldogs. The Bulldogs knocked off Harvard last week in the big game to capture the outright Ivy title. This was a football team that started a lot of freshmen in 2016, only to see it pay off big time this year en route to a championship. And there's going to be some movement in the MEAC as Hampton announced that it was leaving the conference to join the Big South. This will be the second team joining Savannah State to leave the MEAC. Hampton cites travel and monetary reasons for their departure and enters a situation in the Big South where there's going to be a lot less travel and an opportunity to compete in the FCS playoffs. Like I spoke about in the open, it's never too early to take a look at 2018. I know we haven't even started the playoffs just yet, and there are some teams right now, some are in the playoffs, some are not, that I think could be sleeper teams for 2018. I thought Sacramento State showed some big-time improvement this year. The Hornets finished 7-4 in the season and an impressive 6-2 in the Big Sky. Where you like to see them get better is in the closing out games department, and that'll help them knock off some of the better teams within the conference next season. Charleston Southern started to turn it on late in the year and finished with a 6-5 record. They had a pretty interesting 2017 season and one that is tailor-made for a 2018 turnaround back atop the Big South. I really like how Towson started to respond later in the season as well, especially on offense, and with the way head coach Rob Ambrose coaches his defense and special teams, a Tigers offense that comes around instantly makes them a threat. And although Columbia had a breakthrough season this year, I think next year they'll be right back in the mix. This is a young team with a ton of talent, and an early look at what they have coming down the pike from a recruiting standpoint points to them being good for a very long time. Howard is just like Columbia in the same sense that they've experienced a breakout this season, but are definitely built to last. They're built so good that we could see them make a push for the Celebration Bowl next December. Southern Illinois, in my opinion, was a tough out for many teams within the Valley this year. That is going to be valuable experience for a team as they head into spring ball. They'll start believing they can win in 2018. Bryant started off terrible but got hot after their bye week and finished the season with a 6-5 record, 4-2 in the Northeast Conference. Keep an eye on them moving forward. What first-year head coach James Perry has brought to this team is offense and confidence. Both shall be sky high once again next season. Put Austin Peay in the bucket as well with Howard and Columbia. The Governors were tremendous this year and should have gotten a playoff bid in my opinion, but that's neither here nor there. Head coach Will Healy will use this season's disappointment as fuel for next season's run to the playoffs. Lafayette played much better football as the season went on. Expect their offense to catch up with their defense and become much more of a complete team and a threat in the Patriot League in 2018. In the Pioneer League, keep an eye on Drake. I thought the Bulldogs started to get it going around the midway point of the season and just ran out of time in the 2017 campaign. I think they can challenge for the top next year. East Tennessee State has a bit of Mercer in them, in my opinion. I like the way head coach Carl Torbush is building his team. They're going to be in year 3 of existence, and look for them to make that surge as they'll be a much more experienced group in 2018. And I think the Lumberjacks are a sleeping giant type program. Their offense gives them a chance each and every Saturday. I like what I saw from them defensively from an athleticism standpoint, which could mean they'll be even better next year. And Prairie View A&M has quietly been on the rise under Willie Simmons. I think this year's team has a ton of talent. Look for them to put it all together and really shake things up in the SWAC next season. Now it's time to preview some of the playoff games this week, and we'll start in Long Island as Stony Brook plays host to the Patriot League champion Lehigh Mountain Hawks. Styles make fights, and we have a good matchup here. This game will ultimately come down to defensive stops, and we know the Mountain Hawks can score, and we know they don't mind playing in a shootout, but I trust defense over anything in college football, and that's where Stony Brook has a significant advantage, and it'll be where they win this ball game. I like the Seawolves. The Blue Devils travel up north to take on the New Hampshire Wildcats. Central Connecticut State was dealt a big blow when starting quarterback Jacob Dogala was suspended by the team for this game for violating a team rule. He was starting to play some of his best ball of the season, and that really hurts this offense. The Wildcats hope that their own offense can find its rhythm against one of the tougher defenses in the NEC. Losing your starting quarterback for a playoff game will prove to be too hard to overcome. The Blue Devils will be game, but I like the Wildcats in a close one. Rematch games are all about adjustments, and these two teams played each other earlier in the season, and the Phoenix won by 3 points. This time around, the Paladins are winners of 7 of their last 8 games, and the Phoenix are coming off of 2 straight losses. The biggest adjustment I see will be on the defensive side of the football for the Paladins, so look for them to play the run on the way to the quarterback and put Elon in uncompromising situations. I also believe the Paladins will avenge their Week 2 loss to the Phoenix and move on to the next round. Another rematch game from the regular season pits Sanford against Kennesaw State. The Bulldogs are red hot right now, and it's because of their passing game. Quarterback Devlin Hodges is one of the leaders for the Walter Payton Award, and they run up against a team in Kennesaw State that's sort of the same Owl squad that they faced back in August. This time around, the Owls are brimming with confidence and are playing some outstanding defense. In fact, the only blemish on Kennesaw State's schedule is to these same Sanford Bulldogs. It'll be key for the Owls to get off to a fast start. They can't allow Sanford to steal possessions away from them. I do like Sanford in this ball game. Defensively, they'll win some battles early on, and the Bulldogs offense knows exactly what to do with it to make an opposing defense pay. Monmouth travels to take on Northern Iowa. Both teams are built really well along the line of scrimmage. The key to this game for the Hawks is simple: protect the football. When they do that, they don't lose. For the Panthers, it's about finding their ground game. In the losses this season that they've suffered, the Panthers have struggled to run the football. They face a very tough defense in front of the Hawks and will have to get creative in running the football to accomplish that goal. I think we'll see a well-fought physical game that'll have Monmouth standing tall in the end and moving on to round 2. Western Illinois and Weber State is another matchup where both teams mirror one another. The Leathernecks defense has done an excellent job all season long on the back 7, generating turnovers. The defensive line has also been steady as well in applying pressure. For Weber State, they beat you with balance. They can attack any part of the field they want to and get great play from quarterback Sean Cantwell, who does a lot of damage with his arm as well as with his legs. Defensively, can they play the physical game with the Leathernecks and really make them one-dimensional? I believe they can, so look for the Wildcats to knock off Western Illinois and move on. Another intriguing first-round matchup between San Diego and Northern Arizona. We should see a lot of passing in this one as both teams feature tremendous quarterback play. Anthony Lawrence of San Diego and Case Cookus of Northern Arizona. I worry about the Toreros secondary in this ball game. This will be their toughest test yet. The Lumberjacks have to show up versus the run. Otherwise, they won't have enough possessions to be able to put pressure on that secondary. I don't think the Lumberjacks themselves get enough credit for what they can do running the football, so look for that to be the story in this one. I like Northern Arizona. In this year's Bayou Classic that pits Grambling and Southern, it's still a lot on the line, which is why it's going to be another intriguing contest. The Jaguars can still position themselves for a SWAC title berth with a win over the Tigers, while Grambling is essentially looking past the SWAC title game and has its eyes set on a return trip to Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl. However, they can't overlook a Jag squad that's played better in the second half of the season. I just feel like Grambling, or this Grambling team, especially along the offensive line, may be a bit better than what we saw last year in that regard. I'm taking the Tigers to win and move on to the SWAC championship game next week in Houston, Texas. So that's it for this week's episode of the FCS Kickoff. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. And if you missed this episode or want to find one of our other episodes, you can find it archived on our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Don't forget to check out and subscribe on iTunes to the FCS Opening Drive podcast, where David Hashagen and myself will break down the previous week in the FCS and the upcoming week of games and big storylines in the football championship subdivision. Also check out at the end of the week for our FCS conference whip around, where all 13 of our FCS Kickoff correspondents will get you up to speed to what's going on around the FCS and all of the conferences.